What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It's time for another recap of what went down on last night's episode of Teen Mom OG. The episode kicked off with Mackenzie in Oklahoma getting a call from her boss at some sort of nutrition place that she does social media influencing for. He was telling her, listen, you're one of our top influencers. We need you to come to Florida, which I didn't really understand because I thought that she was just selling like videos and like shakes online the same way that Javi's baby mama does with Arbonne or whatever. And I don't get where Florida comes into play, but I guess we'll see a little bit later. Now, moving on into Michigan, Tierra Rain, the clothing line that Tyler started, had shut down because apparently the manufacturer pivoted towards only making COVID protection gear. And so Catelynn talks about how her past kind of attempts at figuring out what she wants to do as a career have always kind of fallen flat. And so now she decides to give microblading a try. So she puts on a transparent mask that's a bit better than the one that Maci's producer wears, but it still shows off breath, sweat, and spit. Oh my God, this is going to be a really rough season to get through. And yes, I know it helps like the hearing impaired to like read lips, but like they need to work on getting rid of the fog so that they could actually read people's lips through these things. Now, I thought it was really weird that the lady at the microblading place asked Catelynn, when she was talking to Catelynn about like the potential of opening up a business, she was asking her if she planned to have more kids in the future. And I'm like, okay, well, if you were interviewing Catelynn for like a job at your company and you asked her this, I'm pretty sure, at least where I'm from, that would be illegal. It's kind of like asking how old are you and like other like overly personal questions. But I'm kind of curious if that kind of raised an eyebrow for any of you as well. Moving down south to Tennessee, Maci FaceTimes Catelynn's husband Tyler to ask for advice about Bentley going to therapy alongside his father Ryan, because Tyler had a very tumultuous relationship with his own father growing up as well. And so Tyler, first of all, is incredibly proud of Bentley for being the one to raise the whole therapy thing and wanting to work things out there. And then he also says, you know, it's a really good idea because, you know, just like you're there with Bentley for Bentley, my mom was always there for me, but like I would always think to myself, oh, like I wish I could talk to this about her, like this issue I'm having today with my dad. But as much as she's there for me, I don't want to overburden her with this topic. I don't want to keep like, you know, bringing it up because I'm sure it's hurtful for her as well. I guess that's what Maci needed to hear because she was quite happy at the end of the call. At least as happy as someone as monotone as Maci can appear to be, right? And speaking of Ryan, on his half of the segment, he looked high out of his mind as he rocked his Trump hat, blissfully unaware that he is an embarrassment to any party that he attempts to support. At least, you know, look awake a little bit when you're going to be wearing a political hat and look as though you even vote. I'm pretty sure this man has never voted a day in his life. He can't even father his own child, but apparently his political opinions count for something. He and Mac talk about how he thinks that Maci's the one that's putting all this therapy stuff into Bentley's head. Ryan's like, I would love to go to therapy, but I feel like it's Maci that's like really trying to like brainwash Bentley against me. Growing up with someone like Maci raising him, as if Ryan isn't the one who is spending his time in and out of jails, shooting and killing random neighborhood cats, allegedly stealing from his own father's like tools in the garage to fund his, you know, drug habit, and running around on Tinder as a married man looking for something pink to stick his dirty DICK in. Like, come on, Ryan needs to grow up, get a job, get a brain, and then, you know, since he feels so bad for his son being raised by Maci, he could work on raising his own damn son. By the end of the scene, he looked so high that he reminded me of Leah when she was holding that baby and her brother had to rush to take it out of her hands, except this time it was Ryan with his long-suffering dog. Back up north in Indiana, Amber complains that her rental house is an hour away from Gary's house, so it's hard for her to like, you know, go that often to see Leah every week, which is interesting because meanwhile, Gary Shirley himself is driving that 1 hour, 7 days out of the week to see Amber by himself without the child. 1 hour each way, 7 days a week, times 2, 14 hours a week, you guys. He must secretly be a plumber the way that he is so ready to plug up Amber's holes. There is no way in hell a man is doing all of that for a woman if there is no WAP on the menu, especially a woman like Amber who has done the unspeakable to him. Gary then talks to clueless Christina about wanting to move Amber closer to their house, like, you know, putting a mobile home on their land, and knowing what's up, Christina basically begs him not to cheat on her her with Amber in the middle of the night. I did a video about this yesterday if you want like a full breakdown on my thoughts on this. Kind of like, okay, well, you don't want him to creep around at night on you, but is daytime okay, sis? Because you're looking like a whole clown out here. We finally get a glimpse of Cheyenne in LA when she tells us that she's not ready to talk to Cory about her relationship with Zach until Zach has been around Ryder enough and until she feels as though their relationship is strong enough. Again, this is hilarious considering they wound up getting pregnant 8 weeks into getting back with each other. So much for that. Cory then tells Cheyenne that he's going to be competing on the challenge, which means that he will be away for up to 3 months. And Cheyenne then worries about what that might mean for, you know, them with Ryder with a panoramic going around. That is a joke. It's a meme. And Ryder being immune compromised. Then we are back down south in Tennessee again, where Maci calls a therapist to schedule a session for Bentley and Ryan, but the therapist asks for Bentley to come in alone first to make sure that he is comfortable and ready for a joint session with Ryan, which I thought was quite great. Maci talks to Bentley about it, and Bentley seems okay with the plan, and then Maci asks how he'd feel if Ryan didn't ultimately end up showing up for therapy. And so Bentley's like, listen, I never had my hopes up about him showing up. And I really liked what Maci told him. She's like, you know, even if you don't have like your hopes up or anything like that, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't be disappointed. So I would like you to express all of these different feelings that you're having and emotions to the therapist so that he can help you manage all of it. Max seems to be looking at it like, hey, if Josh comes down with me, this is an amazing opportunity for us to kind of hit the reset button on our relationship and our marriage. But if he doesn't, then this is a great growth opportunity for myself. So after her conversation with her sister, who seems quite supportive about it, Matt calls Josh to tell him, and he basically says, peace out, but it won't work out between the two of us because we'll be living separate lives when you move to Florida. Around the way in Indiana, Amber goes over to her parents' house to spend a little bit of time with her younger sister Leah, and then, you know, she claims to wear a mask in her own backyard when she's out there by herself. And I'm like, sure, sis, we saw the state of your filthy ass house when you were living with Matt Bayer, so you know, you're not the most health conscious among us. Stop performing here. She then throws shade at Andrew for living in her property when Gary and Christina talk about how, like, you know, they would love for something blah 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 to happen on their property. Then Amber goes, well, I would love to, you know, be in my property. And then Gary offers her a mobile home on their property to pay rent to them, but Amber isn't too into the idea because, listen, she wants her privacy. You know, if she's thoughting and bopping having, like, you know, D appointments come over to her house, she doesn't want them to see all of these cars pulling in. And so Gary actually tells her, listen, well, we don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry coming around. And then Amber, of course, feigns offense at the fact that Gary would suggest that she would be thoughting and bopping, as if she is not constantly trolling her DMs looking for men to hook up with. So Christina then asks Amber to be a sister wife with her in the event of a divorce with Gary. Guys, I am telling you, this season is very, very revealing in terms of Gary and Christina's marriage. You know, episode 1, she's calling Amber a second wife and a teenager to them, obviously seeming stressed. Episode 2, right here where we are, she's begging Gary not to cheat on her with this girl. And she's saying, listen, if we divorce, because my man's cheating on me with you, I'm going to live on this side, you live on this side. And then I guess he gets the main house. And I guess they kind of schedule when they get to have conjugal visits with this man or whatever. You know, like, it's something in the buttermilk ain't clean in that household, I'll tell you that much. It's pretty clear to her that Gary is sticking his saran wrapped DICK into Amber's particular brand of crazy. And if I were her, if I were her and I were willing to stay with a cheater, y'all know I'm not, I would replace the saran wrap with tinfoil at the very least. So back in LA again, Cheyenne goes exercising with her friends and is scared to tell them about dating Zach again because apparently they don't like him, but she doesn't get into why that is. It's a little bit interesting to me because, you know, they set it up in episode 1 that, like, you know, Zach has been there for their whole family since the very beginning. They went through divorces, they went through the pregnancy of a child that's not his, raising the child until he was kicked to the curb for Cory, all sorts of other things. So why wouldn't the friends like him? I really hope they get into that as the season progresses. Next, we are moseying on back up north to Michigan, where Catelynn practices microblading on her mom April's eyebrows, and we get a close-up of her spitty, sweaty mask. I'm sorry, y'all, I keep having to point this out, but it is just so much for me. So she does a good job on April's brows and heads back home and she's playing with the horse. Guys, the horse is not neglected this season, thank God. And Tyler casually asked her, so like now that you're not even certified, you're about to be certified in this microblading stuff, how do you feel about like buying like a studio space and opening a business there? It's like these people act like every major financial decision that will cost them tens of thousands of dollars is as simple as like selecting a brand of chips from a vending machine. It's like no wonder you all have financial issues, like in serious debt, because you don't think. This girl is she's not even certified yet, and she quits everything she tries, and you want her to buy a whole studio space, like a whole office location. You know, this horse is just getting brushed for the first time in 5 years. Why would you suggest that to her? Anyway, Catelynn actually was the voice of reason here, where she didn't seem that she was all that ready for it. And so Tyler asked her how he can help her with her future business. And so she's like, you know, I would like you to maybe do bookkeeping. It's not like they owe $1 million to the IRS or anything like that, right? And then she also says, or maybe you can help with cleaning after, like, you know, I shut down for the days, stuff like that. I have to give it up to Tyler. I really liked how supportive he was. He's like, listen, whatever you need, I will do for you. Now, back in Tennessee again, Maci picks up Bentley for therapy, and oh my God, that child has lost his spark again. He used to be so glowing and happy and just, you know, but now he just looks so beat down and defeated every time you see him. And it really breaks my heart for him and, you know, their whole family as well. I'm sure it's hard to watch your child lose their spark before your very eyes. Then we're transported to Ryan's half of the segment, where Larry really comes out of pocket and practically talks about how he wants Ryan to full-blown abandon Bentley. So Larry starts off by claiming that he does want Ryan to go to therapy with Bentley, and then Jen claims that Ryan also wants to go to therapy, but he feels defeated when it comes to trying to have a relationship with Bentley. And then here's where it goes. Larry's kind of like, you know, I want Ryan to focus on what he's got going on over here, and you know, everything that triggers him is on the other side of the river. What's on the other side of the river? Y'all, I put on my binoculars and I saw Maci's damn house. And who lives in Maci's house? Bentley. So when you read between the lines on what it is that Larry's saying, he's basically telling Ryan, listen, you've got new replacement kids, focus on those, and then leave Bentley back there because Maci triggers you so much, so you don't need him anymore. And Jen then starts crying, and he literally says that Maci is one of his biggest triggers, if not his biggest triggers. And then Mimi Jen starts crying about how they pushed Ryan way too hard, and they'd been also setting off those triggers. And I'm like, this Ryan guy's parents are eating out of his heroin infested hands. Okay, they're talking about how they've been pushing him too hard in life. Meanwhile, he's in his mid 30s and he's never worked a job a day in his life. He doesn't have any kind of, like, you know, schooling or anything like that to speak of. He was casually shooting cats, allegedly stealing from his father, in and out of jails and rehabs and stuff like that, not even completing his proper stints. And they're saying that they'd been pushing him too hard. This is why he is the way that he is. They can F right off. And then Larry kind of really further kind of drives the like knife in Bentley's back when he kind of illustrates where they are in regards to Ryan having, and even them having, a relationship with Bentley. So he tells the producer and her spit mask that he told Bentley, listen, Bentley, you're my first grandson and I love you more than anything in this world and I would do anything for you. But if you think that I am going to give up on my only son, then you're sadly mistaken. Wow, what the actual F-U-C-K? Who says that to a 12-year-old? What kind of conversation with a 12-year-old could prompt that kind of a response? You know, I can only imagine what Bentley told him. Like, maybe Larry asked how he was feeling about Ryan, and Bentley, you know, opened up to him, was vulnerable with him about not feeling like he was important to Ryan or something, and then Larry basically told him to F right off because Ryan comes first. Like, no wonder Bentley has lost his spark and looks so damn depressed this season. You know, if I were Maci, I would be pissed. I would be ready to square up with that man. They're like, what? Are you kidding me? You said that to a 12-year-old child who's already going through like a lot of emotional issues as a result of your deadbeat ass child? So not only has Bentley lost a father, he's about to lose his grandparents too. His grandparents who were so close to him from birth that they were practically like a second set of, or a third set of parents to him. Oh my God, I can't. I felt so broken for Bentley, like, you know, and I wonder if that's gonna come out in the therapy thing as well. That like he feels like, wow, now my grandparents are turning against me because of my dad or this or that. Man, that was just not right, what Larry said to that child. Over in Oklahoma, Mackenzie hosts a separate birthday party for her kids and tells her dad that she's moving to Florida for a job opportunity and that Josh won't be coming along. Their dad seems to be fighting back tears, but he does ultimately say that he's happy for Mackenzie and she's proud and she's going to do big things. But, you know, he's kind of worried about Josh's like maybe connection with the kids if she just ups and moves away with them. Next, we are in Indiana, home of the sister wives, where Christina visits, you know, wife number 2 with some potentially poisoned baked goods to tell her that she's proud of her for coming around a little bit more. And then Amber claims that this is who she's always been, but that there's always been something in the way preventing her from being a good mom to Leah. And it's like, okay, sis, stop. She then continues on to say that, listen, I'm so guilty about, like, you know, all the time that I've lost and all the bad stuff that I did back in the day. And this is where I'm like, back in the day, you are on a fresh probation for allegedly threatening to hack your second baby daddy with a machete as he held your child a year and a half ago. That is not back in the day. That is like 400 and something days ago. Stop it. And as usual, I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but Amber was crying with no tears coming out when she talked about feeling like Leah was better off without her and just having Christina and, you know, her love for Leah as well. You know, Amber is so creepy, you guys. She truly is. I don't think she feels emotions the way you and I do, and I think she's like, well, you know, typically people would cry at this point, so let me like perform that a little bit. I think, you know, this might get people to feel this way or that way about me. Like, between the two of them, Christina was the only one actually shedding actual tears about Leah's welfare and their love for Leah. Amber's eyes were drier than the Sahara Desert. Back down in LA again, Cory drops by Cheyenne's place with Ryder, and they talk about their game plan in the event of something happening with her health again while he's away on the challenge, and of course he would like to be immediately notified. Cory has now grown past vacationing in Mexico while his daughter is in the hospital sick. So we're back in Tennessee again, where I do have to drag Maci a little bit, okay? So she picks Bentley up from therapy and asks him if he wants to talk about his session, and he says no. I feel like that's probably because they're in the car with like all the GoPros pointed at them in every single direction, so he just doesn't want to like perform, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't want to share his grief for everybody. And so, acknowledging in her voiceover that Bentley is not very comfortable sharing his emotions, Maci basically goes, listen, modern problems require modern solutions. Roll the tapes. I'm gonna go behind his back, call his therapist, and broadcast what his feelings were because he's not comfortable sharing them. Are you kidding me? So anyway, she calls up the therapist, and the therapist just tells her, listen, I don't think Bentley is ready for a therapy session with Ryan yet. He needs a few more one-to-one sessions before that can happen. And apparently the therapist's main concern is that Bentley feels neglected by Ryan, and Bentley has a hard time knowing what to do about that. And he says that like he feels like Ryan has no interest or pays no attention to Bentley's life. And he says that Bentley shouldn't have to feel like he needs to teach his dad how to be a father. She gets off the phone with the therapist and is very angry and sad about Bentley feeling neglected by Ryan and being neglected by Ryan. And so Taylor tries to reassure her that she's done everything for him and that she's been a great mom. But Maci was right when she told him, listen, you know, you're the same as a stepfather. You've been amazing, but like there's a hole in his heart that only one person can fill. Obviously Ryan, and Ryan is never going to fit that hole because he's a degenerate. And so, you know, this is a big lesson. The show, at the very least, is a big lesson. Even with all the money in the world, look where they're living. A beautiful big house. They could do whatever. Even with a good step parent, even with you being a good parent, if you didn't choose a good initial father for your child, that could follow them around for life. There's not enough anything in the world to replace that. So definitely choose wisely, y'all. To be honest, I think that Maci needs her own therapy to share the feelings that she's struggling with, knowing that Bentley's kind of issues can't be fixed by her or by Taylor because they are all kind of brought about by Ryan, and maybe to help her set a few boundaries in regards to sharing these sorts of intimate details about her son on television as well. Like, I feel bad for Bentley that this was even aired. Anyway, you guys, that does it. A recap of what went down on last night's episode of Teen Mom 2. But as usual, I'm more looking forward to hearing what you have to say about everything. So please make sure to leave all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, and we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.